So a lot of things have happened today. There are a lot of people that have lost their jobs. More people will be losing their jobs, possibly from what we see. Some people are getting new jobs. We understand that the governor has made some decisions to remove some people from the government house. Some very powerful and some highly placed officials who work in the background have been removed from office in Rivers State government house. And there are not new changes in the legislative and the executive arm of government in that state. This is not the first time we've seen this kind of scenario playing, but you remember at some point where there were the knocking of Akpako in the Rivers House of Assembly. This was in the days of Rotimi Amechi, and just about 8 years ago or thereabout. Looks, things are replaying itself. Let's get a sense of what this means. The legislative issues, the political issues, the legal issues. Tonight, I have a constitutional lawyer, a former member of the House of Representatives. In fact, he was a former chief whip of minority whip in the House of Representatives, Dr. Samson Osage. He joins us virtually from Abuja. It's good to see you. Thank you so much. Interesting that I call you out this time around. I mean, sometimes because of some of these controversial issues, but I know you've seen a lot of this kind of controversy in our constitutional and our political history. In fact, around 2003, 2007, we saw a lot of impeachment moves from Ladoja in Ibadan to several states of the country. In Plateau, we've seen a lot of impeachment moves where people will gather. In fact, in Kogi State, it was a norm at some point in their politics. Now, Rivers State is playing out. From what we saw today and what you know, what do you think is playing out?
Thank you, Sean, for having me on this program this evening. Like you said, a lot has happened today in Rivers State, the Rivers State House of Assembly, which is the legislative arm of the Rivers State government. I think for me, it will be premature to attempt to delve into the political angle because one does not have sufficient information on that yet. But speaking from the legal and legislative perspective to these issues, I want to say that there are legal implications for some of the steps that have been taken by the Rivers State House of Assembly today. Of course, from what we have seen now, there have been impeachment and counter-impeachment. There appear to be two speakers that have been thrown up. The existing speaker appear to have also gathered some members, the number notwithstanding now, removing the leader of the House. And of course, the leader of the House with some other members have been elected as speaker, and some other things have happened, including the signing of impeachment notice by some group of people. Now, let me say that from the constitutional point of view, the Constitution contemplates a situation by Section 143 regarding the impeachment of the President, Section 188 regarding the impeachment of the governor. The Constitution contemplates that when a governor or a president is to be removed from office or impeached by the provision of the law, there is required to be signed by the legislature, at least by 1/3 of the legislature, giving notice to the holder of the office, be a governor, a deputy governor, a president, or a deputy president or vice president. Now, what we have seen today, we are not too sure whether the notice of impeachment signed by one group of the legislature confirms or complies with that provision. And now we also hear that another group of legislators have also suspended the chief judge. Now, the removal of the chief judge from office from the provision of Section 292 of the Constitution follows a strictly constitutional pattern. And I do not think, for instance, that suspending a chief judge is part of that process of removal. So, as the days goes by, we are going to be seeing whether or not these processes have followed the constitutional provisions. So far, so good. What is happening within the legislature now shows that the legislature itself that is set to impeach the governor is itself not at peace with itself. And so the legislature must be able to organize itself in the first place before we can be thinking of impeaching the chief executive of the state. And normally, under the Constitution, the impeachment of the president or the governor is not a walk in the park. Apart from at least 1/3 signing the impeachment notice, it has to be served within 7 days on the holder of the office or the governor. If he replies, the speaker has 14 days to decide and how the House has 14 days to decide by a motion and resolve whether or not to investigate. If it passes that, it has to call on the chief judge, to set up a panel which has 3 months, within 3 months to submit its report and then get back to the parliament. So it's not a walk in the park. It's not an easy thing, but we have seen in Nigeria that impeachment of the chief executive of a state has not been a tea party. More often than not, the courts, in the larger case that you mentioned, the courts have had to declare invalid the process for the impeachment. Of course, there are situations where impeachment have also passed. Recall Balarabe Musa in 1979-1981 was impeached, of course, by a majority party of the MPN as against his own party that was minority in Kaduna State. So there are legal issues, and whether these legal issues are going to be strictly complied with in an attempt to remove the governor of the state remains to be seen in the days to come. But as we speak now, there appear to be challenges facing the assembly itself to be able to comply with the law in order to carry out its threat to impeach the governor. Thank you.
So we look at to make a move of an impeachment on a governor. I think you just need, by law, 1/3, isn't it?
Yes, to sign a notice of petition.
Notice of
petition, you need at least 1/3.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the process is, first and foremost, you make the move, the notice of impeachment on the governor, which the law stipulates the window, the number of days in which he needs to respond. Then the chief judge, he responds. Then whatever response that he gives allows the House to be able to respond also and pass it across to the chief judge, who then will set up a committee which has also stipulated time, just as we saw in Yobe State a few years ago, and they will then now investigate. If it's found wanting, then impeachment process will now be executed. But in all of what we have seen, 26 members, we understand, sat out of 32 members in the House, and we do not know how many people elected the new speaker. What do you think is going on constitutionally and in the eyes of the law? What does the law see, or what does the law feel, technically speaking? Has that impeachment notice been served and executed as it looks because of the number of people that sat in that chamber today?
Those numbers are still uncertain. And on what we read, snippets from the social media, we are told that some members attempted to see it, and of course they signed an impeachment notice, which the law, according to the Constitution, you must serve that notice in 7 days. And now, if that impeachment notice, for instance, has at least 1/3 of the 32 members of the House, then they need to serve it within 7 days. And then the holder of the office, that is the governor, has a window of about 14 days to reply. And if whether he replies or not, the House will need to come back, to decide whether to investigate the impeachment allegations or not. It is only when it eventually resolves to investigate it that it invites the chief judge, to set up a panel, to look at the allegations, and that panel has about 3 months, within 3 months, report back to the House to decide whether those allegations have been proved or not proved. If those allegations are not proved by that panel, then the House can no longer take any decision. But if they are proved, the House again has to take a decision whether, to resolve that based on those allegations, the holder of the office stands impeached or do not stand impeached, depending on their resolution, or whether it is negative. So I said it's not a walk in the park, and the legislature, as we can see now, is in turmoil, and until it is certain which number is on which side, it is going to be very difficult to understand the potency of the purported notice of impeachment, and of course the validity of the impeachment and counter-impeachment plot of the speakers and leadership of the House. So there is a conundrum, legislative conundrum, one may say, regarding this process that have started. They will get clearer as time goes on.
All right, let me let me take you to the realm of politics. And there are those who have said this is pure politics. And this is allegedly former Governor Wike and Governor Fubara, who are now in an obvious political rift. Those who will say, is this not too early? And this is not the very first time that we've seen this kind of a thing happening. In your own state of Edo, in several states of the Federation, in Anambra State, we saw it situation happening there. In several states of the Federation, we've seen successors and predecessors, falling apart, falling out just few months after the one leaves the office and the other takes over. What do you think is the implication of a Wike and a Fubara going into a political war in Rivers State? Honorable Sage, can you hear me?
Yes, you're talking about the political angle. I think my response. Hello, are you hearing me?
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
My response to that is that it is uncertain now what the political issues are. One cannot speak with exactitude on what the issues are for now. The governor himself has said he was going to address press conference to probably unveil the issues behind the issues that are going on right now. The former governor that some people are, of course, pointing accusing fingers at is yet to make anything public. So we need to wait. Of course, there can be no smoke without fire. We are in a political era. It is not unlikely that there may be some political undercurrents for this. But as a lawyer and a legislator, I am more interested in the legality of the legislative process that can lead to the impeachment of the governor. But however, I think that the political angle holds a lot of issues, a lot of answers to the questions that are going to raise.
Honorable Osage, if you hear some of those protesters or those on the street chanting, go to Abuja, Wike, go to Abuja, that, of course, cannot be far away from the undercurrent that is going on. But let me allow you to look at this quickly, and our viewers will also see this, what is happening, and what the law enforcement also, what side they are, on what side they are, and for the number one citizen in the state, and perhaps the kind of treatment that was meted on him, he is complaining of the fact that there are biases in the security agencies. He said that they actually targeted him. And this was a picture that came out of that. And they targeted at him, and the tear gas and the water cannon was actually directed at him. This was a scenario that played out. We've seen people almost lost their lives in legislative crisis in Rivers State. We've seen people being hit with mace on their heads in Rivers House of Assembly crisis. And this is looking like something that is becoming violent and deadly. How do you think this can be resolved, or be nip in the bud? Because this will definitely affect governance in the state, isn't it?
Definitely. There is crisis in River State. And for what you said was lettered out to the governor. As you can see this crowd, it is not unlikely that those who attempted to quell this protest may not even know that the governor is in the midst of that crowd. But however, I think that the police probably were trying to dispatch the crowd so that to continue to maintain peace and order. But it is clear that the governor has been affected by the canisters of tear gas and cannons of water that was poured on the crowd in order to dispatch them. But again, this is a conduct that is not peaceful, and the Constitution did not contemplate that if there is a need to carry out an impeachment of the governor, or if there's a crisis, it should result into this kind of situation. It is most unfortunate, and that is because in our climate we do not respect the law, and almost everybody is guilty of this disrespect for the law. And imagine if it was possible for each arms of government to do their job the way they are supposed to do it without interference. These things will go on almost behind closed doors without anybody having to march on the street or people having to start demonstrating, and then they follow the law. So it is in an attempt not to follow the law that we begin to see crowd and mob, attempting to take laws into their hand. But all told, like I said, we must watch out and see whether or not these processes will follow the necessary legal framework that the Constitution demands. But I must advise that there must be a ceasefire to this act of barbarism that is going on in Rivers State, so that the people can have a sense of peaceful coexistence, and then governance will not be hot at the end of the day.
Yet again, we're seeing Rivers State becoming a huge and intense tough for political warfare. And when this happens, we've seen this happen in the past. Police locked in the middle of all of this. I remember. I don't know if anyone can remember the commissioner of police, Umba, at that time when Rotimi Amechi was in office, and all of those that played that. It was a real impact on governance in that. But that's how we leave it tonight, and hoping that. We understand a lot of development will be happening tonight and tomorrow morning. We're seeing that, hoping that this ceasefire will also happen quickly. Thank you so much, Dr. Samson Osage, a legal practitioner and a former minority whip in the House of Representatives. Thank you for sharing your legislative, political, and legal knowledge with us tonight. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you so much for having me.